Welcome to Honeybee. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the bell. Real stories of love, lies, and betrayal, where every truth stings. Let's begin. When my wife of 15 years stepped into the kitchen on a quiet Tuesday evening and calmly announced that she was finished with our marriage, I did something neither of us expected. I smiled softly and went right on clearing the dinner dishes. It wasn't a smile of joy or relief, but rather a quiet acknowledgement of a truth I had seen coming for months. Allison expected tears, begging, or angry arguments, but I had already spent nearly a year preparing myself emotionally for this very moment. Allison and I had built a life together over many years. In the early days of our marriage, we bonded over shared dreams, building stable careers, buying a home, and starting a family. For the first decade, our marriage was everything I thought a partnership should be. We encouraged each other through job changes and family struggles, bought our first house, and welcomed 2 children who became the heart of our world. Our son Michael was now 13, and our daughter Scarlett was 10. I had always been the primary provider, working long hours as a structural engineer on large commercial projects. The demanding schedule felt worthwhile because it allowed Allison to stay home with the kids during their early years, something we both believed was essential for their growth. This arrangement worked smoothly for over a decade. Allison managed the household and childcare, while I focused on building our financial stability. I handled the budgeting and home maintenance. She organized meals, school activities, and the endless small details that kept our home running. But about 2 years ago, Allison decided to rejoin the workforce. She found a job as a marketing coordinator at a mid-sized advertising agency. At first, I was proud of her. I believed having a career again would give her a renewed sense of purpose beyond her role at home. The changes in her behavior were subtle at first, but soon became hard to ignore. She threw herself into work with a level of intensity that seemed far beyond what was required for an entry-level role. Evenings were now spent on her laptop, responding to emails or finishing projects she said she couldn't complete at the office. Slowly, her focus shifted away from our family. She would come home distracted and distant, often needing time to decompress before talking to me or the kids. Family dinners grew quieter as Allison sat preoccupied, answering questions with short replies before turning her attention back to her phone. Over time, the physical closeness between us also faded. She avoided intimacy, saying she was too tired or simply not in the mood. She began to go to bed early or staying up late, anything to avoid aligning our schedules. Whenever I tried to express concern or suggested we put effort into reconnecting, she brushed it off, insisting she was just adjusting to being back at work. Her attachment to her phone became especially noticeable during family time. Even on weekends, she would take work calls and spend evenings scrolling, saying she had to stay available for urgent matters. When I questioned whether this was truly necessary, she said quick responses were crucial in her industry and that she still needed to prove herself. The growing emotional distance between us was undeniable. Still, I kept making excuses for her, telling myself she just needed more time to adjust. But as the months went by, it became clear that this wasn't a phase. It was a shift. Allison's interest in our life together had faded. She stopped sharing details about her day, showed little curiosity about mine, and often seemed relieved when something interrupted our conversations. I began to feel like I was living with a polite stranger who was merely going through the motions. In my search for answers, I started therapy with a counselor specializing in marriage and family issues. At first, I hoped it would give me tools to repair our connection. Through those sessions, I learned that I had been the one making most of the effort, initiating talks, planning family activities, trying to bridge the gap, while Allison kept withdrawing. My therapist helped me see that the emotional distance often means a deeper conflict. Sometimes people pull away not because of stress, but because they are no longer sure they want to stay. She encouraged me to keep a journal of my feelings and observations. Writing things down made everything clear. Allison's disengagement wasn't sudden. It had been happening for much longer than I wanted to admit. The more examples I recorded, the harder it became to deny the pattern. Eventually, I began to accept that Allison might already be emotionally gone, even if she hadn't said the words. I met with a family law attorney to understand what divorce might look like and what it would mean for custody of our kids. The lawyer prepared divorce papers at my request, not because I wanted to end things right away, but because having them ready gave me a sense of control in a situation that fell out of my hands. Then came that evening. I had taken the day off work to be with the kids during their school break. I cooked dinner, set the table carefully, and hoped the night might remind Allison of what we'd built as a family. But when she walked in, her expression was detached, her body language heavy. After a moment of silence, she sighed and told me she was done pretending and wanted out of the marriage. She said she'd been unhappy for a long time and didn't see a way to fix things. Her tone was calm, almost businesslike, as if she were delivering a report instead of ending 15 years of life together. Oddly enough, I didn't feel crushed. I smiled gently and told her that if leaving was truly what she wanted, I wouldn't stop her. Allison looked stunned. She had expected me to beg, argue, or fall apart. But I simply finished clearing the kitchen, then poured myself a glass of wine and sat with the reality I had already been living with for months. Her words didn't break me because I had already mourned the loss of our marriage long before she said them. All her announcement did was confirm what I knew and allow me to finish letting go. The next morning, I called my lawyer and told him to file the papers. There was no longer any point in waiting or hoping she'd change her mind. Over the following days, Allison seemed to try creating conflict, picking fights over small things and criticizing my parenting, perhaps looking for a reason to justify leaving. But my therapy had prepared me. I stayed calm and refused to engage in drama. Eventually, she began telling friends and family her side of the story, painting me as controlling or emotionally distant. When people asked, I simply said Allison had made her choice and I respected it. I didn't defend myself or try to argue. 3 days later, she was served with the divorce papers. She was shocked at how quickly I acted and demanded to know why. I told her simply that she said she was done, and I was just respecting her decision. Custody became the most difficult part of the process. At first, Allison asked for shared custody, but it became clear that both Michael and Scarlett preferred staying with me. They had felt her distance for months and wanted the stability of staying in the family home. A court-appointed child psychologist interviewed them. Michael, old enough to speak clearly for himself, said he loved his mom but felt safer with me. Scarlett echoed those feelings in her own way. The court granted me primary custody, with Allison having generous visitation rights. The divorce took 11 months to finalize. Allison moved into a downtown apartment and built a new life. Occasionally, she would ask the children about me, whether I seemed sad, whether I missed her. They told me she seemed surprised that I was doing well. Nearly 2 years after the divorce, Allison began hinting at reconciliation. She first used the kids to pass along messages about missing our family. Then she began calling me directly, apologizing and saying she had realized she made a mistake. But by then, I had found clarity. I told her gently that our chapter was closed, and we both needed to focus on building new futures. She seemed genuinely shocked that I wasn't willing to revisit the past, as though she had expected to have control over when and how our marriage ended. What I learned through all of this was powerful. Sometimes the healthiest response to someone's decision to leave is to simply let them go. Allison's announcement didn't destroy me. It allowed me to complete a process of acceptance I had already started. Our kids have adjusted well. They still see their mother on weekends, but our home feels calmer and more stable than it did during those last months of tension. My work continues to provide for us, and I become a more present and engaged parent without the weight of constant relationship strain. I've also learned not to ignore my instincts. Allison's withdrawal was a warning sign I tried to rationalize, and all it did was prolong both of our unhappiness. The truth is, sometimes love means stepping aside when someone chooses to go. Allison's choice, though painful, ultimately freed us both to build lives more aligned with who we really are.